Well, hey there. So someone writes in and says, Christopher, how can I get my remote team to take responsibility? Brilliant question. All right. Let's make this in two parts. The part about team responsibility and the part about remote team. All right. First, there's no technology, tool, process, framework, I don't care what they call collaboration tools. There is no tool that will collaborate for you. All the tool can do is span the distance for you between you and the other. So first, get in communication. Get the tools that you need so that you can have video communication among all team members and so that you can access shared documents or shared tools. I've found that no do-it-all tool works, and the reason is that those tools aren't available to everybody and require different levels of system stuff. So what I've found is that the most collaborative teams, the most effective teams, they use the simplest tools. Simplest tools like, that big search company, Docs and slides and sheets, and simple tools like Skype or Zoom or GoToMeeting or Hangouts. That's it, right? Figure out how to get in communication. Then there's no difference between what you do to build a team in person and what you do to build a remote team. All right, let's talk about how do I get a team to take responsibility. So I've worked on this for about 30 years, and I've done a lot of applied science around this, and I'm here to tell you that I think that I can teach you to build any team anytime. And so here are the things that I would pay attention to. I'm going to give you 6 steps. 3 of them I'm going to call pre-steps, and then 3 of them are actually steps that you do in communication with your team. This is a conversational framework. And so here's the pre-steps. So the first step is to take 100% responsibility for the quality and productivity of your team. Yeah, now why would you want to do that? Well, the reason you'd want to do that is because if you don't, then you're going to get random results. And you know what a normal curve looks like, right? So the quality and productivity of teams worldwide fits a normal distribution. And that means there's a few great ones, a few horrible ones, and a whole bunch of really middling ones. And the middling ones are not very satisfying and they don't produce very good results, right? So what I encourage you to do is to demand to be on a great team. In other words, demand to be on a team that's at the high end of that curve every time for the rest of your career. Now what that means is that you then want to make a decision that you are the kind of a person, the kind of a player, the kind of an engager, the kind of a contributor, the kind of a collaborator. You're the kind of person that deserves to be on a great team. Right? So do you carry yourself in such a way? Do you communicate in such a way? Do you share responsibility in such a way? Do you keep your agreements in such a way? Do you make and keep commitments in such a way? Do you clean up messes in such a way? Do you respond to problems that you're a part of in creating with others or that your team has? Do you do all those in such a way that you deserve to be on a great team? And then if you deserve to be on a great team and you demand to be on a great team, then that means to do so, you get to take 100% responsibility for the quality and productivity of your team. This will serve you well because it will bring you a lot more joy and a lot more results at work. Second pre-step is to believe that you can build any team anytime. Right? So I've found that this lack of belief, is a huge stopper. I've found so many people think that teams coming together is totally random, it's magic, it's fairy dust, or you need an expensive consultant if it's going to happen, or you need the right people because of bad chemistry or bad players or whatever. Right? here's the truth. If you don't believe that you can build any team anytime, then you never will. Right? So work on your belief. And in order to work on that belief, you might have to generate some knowledge and awareness about what really makes teams come together and what gets in their way, so that you can pay attention to doing the things that must go well and must happen, and avoiding the things that must not happen and must not go well. That's mostly what I did when I set out to figure out how to create a framework for building any team, anytime. Many years ago, I wrote an article called Faith as a Team Building Rudiment. Rudiment meaning rudimentary, a foundation, a basic element. Faith as a team building rudiment. And what it said was that I noticed that as I interviewed and gained friends around the world who were great team building consultants, what I noticed is that they all had this belief. And that is that they all absolutely knew that if they could get a group of people together in the same space and time, that we called it getting people in a container together, and keep them together fighting fair through disagreement. So keep staying together through disagreement is a key principle of building teams. Right? Then they all knew that if they did that, then that team had a great chance of coming together and gelling and getting into high performance dynamics as a team. So number 2, believe. Have the belief. Number 3, awareness. So I just spoke a little bit to awareness. Educate yourself about the things that bring teams together and the things that break teams apart. And then work on creating those patterns that bring teams together and staying away from those patterns that pull teams apart. I wrote a little book about this a number of years ago called Teamwork is an Individual Skill, Getting Your Work Done When Sharing Responsibility. And it's all about the awarenesses of shared responsibility and shared leadership in teams. Okay, so you do the pre-work on yourself. Then after you're doing the pre-work on yourself, then convene your team and start having a series of conversations and dialogue. And this is called the team orientation process. And the first conversation is to have a conversation about what are we a team to do. And the outcome of this conversation is to make sure that the team has shared understanding or shared clarity about the team's task. That's team level task, not individual level task. Many of us go to individual assignments and roles way too quickly. And when we do that, then we never have a shared alignment about what the team must do. So the number one predictor of group cohesion, of people coming together and cohering as a group, is that they're in the same boat together, right? It's not when you do your job with the oar on that side of the boat and I do my job with the oar on this side of the boat. It's when we both are doing our job, we're both steering, we both know where we're going, and we're both watching for holes in the boat and everything else. It's not just that I do my job. Right? So the way to do this is to ask a secret question, and the question is, what must we do together that's bigger than all of us, that's bigger than any of us, requires all of us, and none of us can claim individual victory until we get it done. Right? I've found that question to be a magical question for a team. Another quick comment on this is that for decades I've heard project leaders say, well, I wrote up the project charter and I sent it out to everybody. They should have read it. Right? So I go and interview those people. Right? What's our team task? What's our team task? What's our team task? Right? Sticking a microphone in everybody's face. And what I find out is that there's no shared clarity about what the team's to do. Right? The way to achieve shared team clarity is to convene a dialogue and hold people there asking what the team mission, the team project, the team task is, right? What's the boat that we're in together, right? And host that conversation until people are looking at each other going, oh yeah, that's it, that's it, that's it. At that moment, what happens is there's an internal shift in the human beings where they move from either competition or independence, they move into positive interdependence. In other words, they realize that they're now in something together with others in a dependency situation, such that if that person over there is working hard, it means that they're making my life better and easier because they're working towards my goal, right? It makes me want to match their work. And it makes me want to share ownership for the overall outcome, makes me want to share ownership for their relationship. Science says this is the #1 predictor of group cohesion, is people feeling like they're in the same boat together, or what's called positive interdependence. Okay, enough on that one. The second thing that I would do is, this says to surface member motivation. Second step, surface member motivation. Do you know how worried everyone is when they're assigned to a team about whether or not others will be as motivated, whether there'll be same levels of commitment, right? So this is a huge concern. And I'm going to pull this concern forward and I'm going to address it right away. I've also heard so many project leaders say, Christopher, I can't motivate my people because I don't have any carrots and sticks. I'm not their boss. They don't report to me. And I say, that's a good thing. And the reason is that carrot and stick motivation, i.e. extrinsic or external motivators, right? They produce kind of average motivation and performance. But if you want high performance, then what you want is people doing things for voluntary reason, or what I call intrinsic motivation, right? Internal motivation. And I went in search of the best tool I could find for managing peer motivation. In other words, how can I elicit or surface, right, the motivation of a teammate or a colleague? And the basic way to do that is to ask them, what's in it for you, right? What's in it for you to work on this project with me? And then probe a little bit down, because the first couple of answers are surface level answers that are socially desirable and approved of by the company, right? So the answers we're really invited to talk about are pay and title and plaques and do it for the team and all that kind of stuff. But if we dig down a little bit deeper, we start to discover that what really makes someone show up for work is, you know, for Joe, it's the satisfaction of the job well done. For Mary, it's being part of a really cool thing that's coming together. And what you find is that when you do this, what you find is everybody's real intrinsic motivations can be met, and everybody can help each other meet those real intrinsic motivations. So I hope we can get together sometime and I can show you this more longer involved interview sequence that always works to elicit high levels of intrinsic motivation and to follow the commitment that follows when people realize that their intrinsic motivation can be met on a team. So the third thing in the team orientation process is to make and keep agreements. So a lot of people focus on trust. I think trust is a byproduct, right? I can extend trust, but in actually building trust, it's a byproduct. Right? So it's a byproduct of promises kept. It's a byproduct of people doing what they'll say they'll do and keeping agreements. So my secret is that I focus on making and keeping agreements, starting with operating agreements, and then every other agreement. Operating agreements are those few 6 or 8 really, really important agreements about how we're going to work together in terms of our communication, in terms of our timeliness, in terms of our confidentiality, etc. Again, this is done in dialogue with people recommending them. Most of my audience has lots of experience with operating agreements. The important thing is that you design your own work norms. And norms are agreements, implicit or explicit, that become routine. And there's two ways that norms happen in teams. There's norms happen either by default, that is by whatever gets allowed, put up with, permitted, right? And they happen by design, and that is what gets designed in by explicitly making operating agreements and then keeping them. And taking 100% responsibility for it means that when one of those agreements gets violated, even in a fairly small way, that somebody on that team, you if you demand to be on a great team, steps up and say, hey, do we need to have a conversation about this agreement? Right? Did you forget? What's up? Right? So, what we say is call it at a force equal to or less than the level of the violation. So we don't want to escalate. Most agreements are broken out of neglect rather than intent. So having a conversation about it usually shores things up. Okay, so these are the 6 things that I would pay attention to develop huge levels of responsibility and shared responsibility in any team, remote or not. So something that I would recommend that you start doing today is to ask yourself if you demand to be on a great team, and if you deserve to be on a great team, and if you're willing to take responsibility for the quality and productivity of that team. Send all your questions to hello@responsibility.com. I look forward to hearing from you.